Okay, before you guys say that I'm just salty that the Knicks did not get the number 1 pick, I'm not even mad about that. Morant or RJ Barrett would both be great. The teams that should be mad are the Cavs, the Suns, and the Bulls. I've heard some others say that teams should not rely on the lottery all the time and work better to develop internally, and it's the fault of those teams, not because they missed out a chance at a higher draft pick. But at the same time, not every single team will be good. In the NBA, there's always going to be a couple of teams that are at the bottom, and unfortunately, this year they got shafted pretty hard, but we'll get into that later. Anyway, this was the first year of the NBA's new lottery system, and I think it was ridiculous. For those who don't know the difference between the new system and the old system, I'll give you guys a quick explanation. The previous lottery system from 2005 until 2018, these were the odds. Worst team gets a 25% chance at the number 1 pick, second worst team 19.9%, third worst 15.6%, then 11.9%, and so on. This was the old system, and it scales down with the second and third overall picks too. Now this is the new system. All of the bottom 3 teams get only a 14% chance at the first pick. Then the percentages go down much slower than the old system. This means the Pelicans, who had the 7th worst record in the NBA during the 2018-19 season. Well, actually they were tied for 7th worst with the Mavs and Grizzlies, but they won the tiebreaker. So the Pelicans were granted the 7th best chances to win the number 1 pick, a 7.5% chance. And surprise, they won. To be honest, it shouldn't be that surprising either, because the bottom 3 teams only have a 14% chance to win it now. Compare that to the old system where the 7th worst team only had a 4.3% chance, while the worst team had a 25% chance. So basically, as you can see, the odds are much closer together, giving other teams who are not at the bottom a better chance for a higher pick. This applies to the Memphis Grizzlies too, who also managed to jump up in the draft and get the number 2 pick. Now, here's the issue. The whole point of Adam Silver implementing this new system is to discourage teams from tanking, and punish them if they do by giving them lower odds. But here's the problem, it does not actually do that. It doesn't punish teams that are tanking. Instead, it punishes teams that are just bad. Teams like the Cavs, the Knicks, the Suns, and the Bulls. Were they tanking? Maybe a little bit, but regardless, they were just plain bad. They are not Sam Hinkie's 76ers. The GMs of those teams aren't going out of their way to sign bad players on purpose to lose. There's a difference between being a bad team trying to grow and losing on purpose to get a high draft pick. On the other hand, the New Orleans Pelicans were actually tanking during the second half of the season. After failing to trade Anthony Davis, they sat him out for many games. They played him limited minutes, like they were legit tanking and trying to lose. Or trying to keep Davis healthy, something like that. And so, their intentional tanking after the All-Star break gave them decent odds to win a high draft pick because of this new system, which of course they ended up getting. Now, the Pelicans aren't even a bad team, they won 33 games. They were in the playoff race for most of the season, and it only took about 2 months of tanking for them to get a good chance of getting rewarded, which they did. While the legitimately bad teams got screwed over, especially in a draft like this where it's rather top-heavy and not very deep. The whole purpose of the NBA draft is to help bad teams get better, which this new system still does, but far less of a chance compared to before. In fact, it might be even beneficial for teams who are on the brink of the playoffs but struggling to make it, to tank a little bit near the end of the season to get some good lottery odds, which is what teams like the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, and the Mavericks did. The new lottery odds actually encouraged them to tank a little bit near the end of the year, because that made more sense than fighting for the 8th spot in the playoffs and then getting swept. Now, I know some people are gonna say, well, Andy, shouldn't bad teams just stop making bad decisions? Won't this new system encourage them to work harder at building a better team, so they don't have to rely on the draft all the time? Well, that is true, teams will work harder to get better if they aren't being rewarded as much as before. But the thing is, there will always be a couple of teams at the bottom of the standings. Every time you see some teams win over 50 or 60 games, there's always going to be a couple of other teams who are winning 20 or 30 games. That's just how the NBA works. Not every team is going to be good. There's only a limited number of players around the world who are talented enough to be in the NBA. Historically, the primary way a bottom-feeding team becomes a contender is by getting a high draft pick who develops into a star. Obviously, nowadays, we've seen players become more mobile in free agency, stars teaming up and things like that, but historically, building a team through the draft has been the most successful, and now it's harder for those teams at the bottom to do that. Recently, I read this post on Reddit that said, the team that got LeBron James will have a higher draft pick than the team that he left. That's freaking crazy to me. The Lakers won 37 games, nearly twice as many as the Cavaliers, yet the Lakers still got the higher draft pick. 3 of the top 5 picks went to teams that were not even bad teams. They were in contention for the playoffs for most of the season. What's even funnier is that the Pelicans, Grizzlies, and Mavericks all won 33 games. The Pelicans and Grizzlies got the number 1 and number 2 picks respectively, while the Mavs dropped all the way down to number 10. That means the Mavs have to send their number 10 pick to Atlanta, because it was only top 5 protected. That was part of the deal in that Trae Young and Luka Doncic trade. The Mavs were basically a tiebreaker away from getting a number 1 or number 2 pick. So yeah, that sums it up. The first year of this new system seemed kinda whack, and a lot of teams moved all over the place on the draft boards. Some could say that this was just a special year. But the thing is, the way the lottery is set up now, with the percentages all closer together, there's bound to be a lot more unpredictability in the future. Anyway, thank you everyone so much for watching. What are your thoughts on the new system? And what are your thoughts on the Pelicans getting Zion Williamson? Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.